Gun violence prevention measures have faced stiff opposition in the past, and advocates see this as a now or never moment. But gun rights advocates still do have serious concerns over the infringement of Second Amendment rights. I want to bring in the spokesman for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, Mark Oliva, for more on this. Mark, thanks for being here. You know, senators are considering strengthening background checks, implementing a national red flag law that would allow courts to temporarily confiscate guns from people deemed to be a threat to either themselves or others. These are two measures that are extremely popular across the country. More than 80% of Americans are estimated to support them. Now, unlike the NRA, you've actually said that red flag laws could be an area for compromise with some considerations. So what do you think those considerations need to be?
Yeah, Diane, thanks for having me today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And first and foremost, I want to make sure that we understand our hearts go out to the families in Uvalde and Buffalo. I mean, these tragedies are unspeakable, horrific acts, and no community should have to suffer through these. And with that said, we approach these discussions that are happening in Congress right now with an open mind, and we are willing to sit down with anybody who is willing to have, honest and frank discussions to bring about a resolution to prevent these types of tragedies. And we think that there is some room to have this, and we're encouraged by the sober discussions that are happening in the Senate. And we talk about some of those things. And to your point of red flag laws, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the Firearm Industry Trade Association, has never opposed red flag laws so long as they have due process rights considerations written into them. And I think that's important. You have a constitutional right to be able to view any evidence, to rebut any witnesses in front of a judge, and that right needs to be protected in any of these red flag laws.
And what about background checks, strengthened background checks? Do you see an opportunity for compromise there as well?
I think it's interesting, again, if we look at some of the discussions that are happening in the Senate, there are discussions about possibilities of looking a little bit further back into the background checks of young adults who are 18 trying to purchase a firearm, but also making sure that we're checking their juvenile criminal history as well. And some of that has become a concern. I think that there's some room there that we're able to start to explore those ideas and what that might look like. I don't want to get ahead of the legislators on this or ahead of the senators on those discussions, but I think it's important that we understand that these are fruitful discussions that are happening. If we look at the lead senator on both sides of the aisle, Senator Cornyn and Senator Murphy, both of these senators have been here before, and we can look to the track record that we were able to work with them a couple of years ago on the Fixed NICS Act, and that was so we could get all states and federal agencies to submit all disqualifying background materials to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check system. And that wasn't happening. And unfortunately, we saw that with the Sutherland Springs tragedy. And so we worked with these senators to be able to get that legislation to cross the line, signed into law. That legislation had 78 co-sponsors in the Senate. And I like to remind people, it'd be really difficult to get 78 senators to sign a birthday card, but they signed on to this legislation. And because these two senators are leading this discussion, we're very encouraged that they're looking to try and find a way ahead that's going to be effective for the nation.
It sounds like you are a pro-gun rights advocate, and you are seeing a lot of potential for compromise here. So why does it feel like these discussions are so difficult even now?
These are difficult issues, and they need to be examined soberly and deliberately. I think that what we're talking about is our essential rights. And when we talk about the rights of Americans that must be protected, we're talking about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is a constitutional right. And every American at the age of 18, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you have the ability to exercise that right at your will whenever you choose to do so. And we think that that needs to be protected just as much as your due process rights, just as much as your First Amendment rights and your Fourth Amendment rights. These are the rights of the citizens, not of the government to grant and take as they see fit. These are our rights. And I don't want to take away the ability for any young adult to be able to protect themselves when they need to. We talk about these ideas of raising the age. And I like to remind people, I served in the Marine Corps for 25 years. I took very young Marines off to war with me, and they left behind some very young spouses, 19 to 20 years old. And you can't buy a handgun unless you're 21 years old. So if we're going to take away that ability for them to buy a long gun too, then you are disarming that young adult who is fully vested in their rights. And I don't think we would entertain any discussion to say an 18 or 19-year-old couldn't vote or couldn't go worship at the church, synagogue, or mosque of their choice. And we need to be able to sit down and have a sober discussion about making sure that we are protecting the Second Amendment rights of these adults as well.
Why do you think that an 18-year-old needs to be able to buy a weapon like an AR-15, for example? And do you think there's anything else that can be done when you look at the profile of a lot of these mass shooters and the fact that many of them are young males in that age range?
Yeah, Diane, you bring up a very good point, and you asked, why would they need to? We're talking about a Bill of Rights. It is your right to do so. It's not a Bill of Needs, and I think we need to be sober in that discussion. And I'm not trying to be flippant about that discussion, but I think it needs to be recognized that this is our Bill of Rights. This is a right that I served in the Marine Corps to be able to protect those rights for the citizens to be able to exercise at their leisure. So, is there room to do more? I think there may be. I think that there are serious discussions happening about looking into the criminal history and looking into any type of other history that may be potentially disqualifying for someone who is 18, 19 years old that may have happened in their youth at 15, 14, 17 years old. And those records may be getting sealed up by states. And we want to make sure that we are making sure that background check system is as accurate as possible. So these are potential areas, I think, that can be discussed and can be talked about to make sure that we're making the right decisions and empowering our legislature to protect our communities the best way that they can.
Well, it's an important conversation, Mark, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your side of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.